Hello everybody. I think we finally got this working. So, my name is Lacha. I am a player that has been in the Smash community now for 9 years. I've done a bit of TOing as well in my time. And I just quickly wanted to discuss Smash Ultimate and what it means to be a patchless game, and why I think this is an exciting thing. Now, the reason for this is the fact that I was checking out this video from Vars on his channel, Vars 3. Absolutely amazing video, you should check it out. Why Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is frustrating to play. And there were some really interesting points during this. I want to just quickly sum it up, which was that Ultimate is pushing towards a more punish game-oriented meta, in his opinion, and that older/lower tier characters, even though there's a lot of characters popping up, he believes that it is largely from them imitating the top tiers, imitating their punish game. And the best way that he compared it, and the one that I found super interesting, it's literally why I'm making this video, is he compared it to how Yu-Gi-Oh players, whenever there's a lower tier deck, they often end up trying to find a way to make it function similar to the top tier decks. How they can set up these overrolling board states that can end the game turn 1, turn 2. And this obviously would reduce the number of neutral interactions, which in his opinion is less fun to play, because he believes that it makes some characters lose their identities, and it means that some of the characters that get picked are more of these, like, quote-unquote degenerate characters like Kazuya that are built around just purely maximizing how much damage you can get, how quickly you can kill somebody. Or that you're playing a character like Snake or Game & Watch or Min Min that are built around simply stopping that and making it so that you basically counter this 0 to death meta as simply as possible. Now, honestly, like I said, this is an amazing video. If you haven't given it a watch, make sure you do. But I just want to give a quick TLDR as to why I kind of disagree with these points. The first being, I think it just removes some of the nuance around gameplay discussions and around meta discussions, because I think there are a lot of characters that break this rule in small ways. I think that there are a lot of characters that seemingly would fit this and yet still haven't popped up. And I think there are some characters that end up getting boiled down to their most basic traits as a result. Number two, I think it ignores a lot of the commonality that it has with other fighting games as they progress and as they get developed and as stuff gets figured out about them. It feels like it's treating it as this kind of unique problem that Ultimate has, when I think that's simply kind of untrue. Three, I think it ignores the effort and excitement that comes from these developments. I think that he mentions the excitement about competition, which, I mean, yeah, that's pretty inarguable with Kagurabi. But I think that it also ignores how much work gets put into these developments and how exciting it is when they do happen. It feels like the birth of a new character. And then finally, I kind of think he misjudges what characters will rise with time as the meta develops. I think there are some characters who basically get a head start on this meta, and that is why they're doing well right now, but I think that as it develops, they will fall off, and I will go over just one of them later on. But let's just first start out by discussing what is unique about patchless games, because that's where we are with Ultimate right now. I think that an important thing to realize is that the standards we use to measure character strength become more defined. Obviously, with no more patches, a true meta can actually develop, because nothing is coming around to disrupt what that most efficient tactic is. It's disrupting, nothing's coming around to like add a new character that'll shake it up, nothing's gonna remove the tools that these characters have. Players aren't afraid about stuff getting removed, so they're gonna optimize the heck out of it, because they don't have to be worried anymore. And the reason why I want to bring this all up and why I want to really make this clear is because since this game on the screen right now, Super Smash Bros. Melee, there has not been a single patchless game since. The closest one that you can argue is Brawl. Obviously Brawl had 6 years essentially with no patches to develop on its own. But I think that there's another thing that's not discussed here, which is that Project M came out during this time as well, giving something else fresh that people could go to, giving something else for people to really work on and play and experiment with and have a fun time playing this new thing. So I think it counts, sort of, but especially since then, we obviously then had the time between Smash 4 and Ultimate as the shortest time yet, 4 years, with patches pretty much for the entire lifespan of the game. I think that final year there wasn't any, but for the most part this game had a lot of developer support. Ultimate is our first game where we've had 7 years of uninterrupted development since Melee. And I think that's just really interesting for starters, but I also want to just go over what that ends up meaning. And I think the biggest thing about it is that stats begin to matter a lot more. What is valued in characters is more apparent due to what we then end up defining as the meta. And so stats relevant to that just end up taking priority. Stuff like in Melee, there's frame data, there's movement stats, a million things like that. There's your dash dance, because your dash dance does have an extreme impact. And if your stats in these categories are bad, then your strengths need to be overwhelmingly good. You need to be a character like Puff or like Peach, who have other ways to kind of break the game, or else you just fall behind. And I think one key stat that pops up in basically any fighting game, especially patchless ones, is openings per kill. Now, this is simply just how many neutral wins does it take to take a stock or win a round, because it obviously matters a ton. But let's just go over why. Smash gives you more freedom with when you can take a stock, and so playstyles will develop about how that people can take stocks as early as possible, and some people will build their entire game plan around that. The clearest example is actually Mewtwo when he started taking over the game back in 2007, 2008, which, funnily enough, was also around the time that, I guess he was taking over the game a little bit before that, but let's just not get hung up on that. The way that he was doing it was by realizing, hey, I'm just going to maximize my openings per kill. I might go for options that are a little risky, I might go for options that are a little one-dimensional, but if I hit you, you die. Because he had such an understanding of how he had to kill off of every single hit that he could get. And so he was just miles ahead in Punish Game compared to anybody else at the time, and it meant that he just completely dominated. And then as time went on, more people end up playing around this and playing to maximize this. And this is not even a Smash specific thing. A lot of people actually do this in other fighting games, and I think a great example of this is Third Strike, bringing us to Makoto. Makoto in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, it's another patchless game, and she's probably the closest thing to a touch of death character in that game. She's a little bit on the slow end, but bulky, and she has a few burst options to get in, and if she gets in, she will put you in absurd situations. She will deal a ton of damage and then place you in another, basically, guess for game situation. You either block the mix-up or you're dying. I put down 2 to 3 neutral interactions. You sometimes can be 1 or 2 interactions away from just dying to Makoto. And so, with openings per kill mattering so much, this should guarantee Makoto's, some absurd character. But here we are. So, just to clarify, this tier list was made by a player called Sho, who for the last 2 years has won EVO Japan. They won both in 2024 and 2025, with 2025 being a team event. And this was their tier list. So number 7 out of roughly 20 characters, that's not bad, and she's still an A tier, but she's at the bottom of A tier, and there's a number of characters here who I can just tell you do not hit as hard. So what's the issue here? What is holding Makoto back? Well, there's a couple factors, but I want to go through this by discussing what makes the top 3 characters so good. And it's specifically that they just have easy access to their damage. They get good damage off of most hits. Specifically, these 3 have amazing ways to confirm into super. This is not like in later games where every character just has an easy down medium into confirm into super. Most characters have to kind of work for it or go for very specific openings. Ken, Chun-Li, and Yun really do not have that limitation. And so they're able to play their amazing neutral that all 3 of them have. They all have amazing neutral tools, great movement, a little bit of BS. But then they can always convert into their hits. They can always get their damage. And that's a little bit different from Makoto, who has very specific kind of conditions that need to be met. And then once she gets them, then we're in party time, then you're taking a guess game situation. So, what does this say about the future of Patchel's games? I think that it says that when everyone starts dealing a lot of damage, when everybody starts getting those confirms off of stuff, it comes back around to neutral mattering. You start getting more in-depth, important interactions, and sure, it's less, but that means that people have a better understanding of what they need to do, and it means that the neutral is way more interesting, because each hit matters so much more. And sure, there'll be some characters that have to really push everything out. They really need to start getting blood out of a stone. But they will catch up eventually. It's going to take time, but you kind of have to if you want to compete in the meta. And so they will. And once people catch up, then we'll get to this point. And I think there's no better example of a character where this kind of affects them like Kazuya. There's nobody like Kazuya that illustrates this. So let's just go over what makes Kazuya good, what makes Kazuya bad, and what, in my opinion, makes Kazuya kind of fraudulent. Let's start with it. Kazuya's Ultimate's Makoto. This character has amazing scrap tools. They have insane reward off of his big openers. He will just kill you in a single hit if he can. He can't, and he pretty consistently can. He's super heavy, so you're just not getting kills against him off stray hits. And then on top of that, his recovery is actually very, very good. It's very hard to straight up gimp Kazuya off stage. And all this combines to just make him a really frustrating character to deal with, because you know that you can't really scrap with him, and you know that if he just finds a way to force his way in, and he does get one of his big hits, you're just dead as long as they don't mess up. But let's also take this time to discuss what makes Kazuya kind of bad. He has the worst jump squat in the game, which means that he has both an issue with projectiles sometimes, as he can't simply jump over them. He has to either command dash through certain projectiles, or he has to go for the reflector. It also hurts his landing game, because he cannot do as much of a mix-up with, am I going to jump to head to a different spot, or am I just going to fall here? And then on top of that, he has no fast landing options. The closest thing you could say is his down air or fast fall air dodge, but he's not a super fast faller himself. So you're not dealing with the same kind of crazy mix-ups that Fox is having to deal with. You're going to deal with against Fox, or even characters like Cloud, kind of. He's overall pretty slow. Both in the air and on the ground. Obviously his command dash is something, but that leads into our next point. His execution at a tournament setting is harder than people give it credit for. I think if it really was as easy as people put it, we would see players like Riddles executing stuff perfectly all the time and just hitting all the 0-to-deaths without fail. But we don't. I think that the execution, especially in a game like Ultimate, where there are some, let's just say, factors that make it difficult to execute properly, I think that inconsistencies in that matter a lot, especially with a character built around killing you in his one big combo. And then finally, talking about that big combo, I would say he's kind of reliant on electric and grab for his biggest damage. If he's not hitting you with grab into electric, or just with raw electric, it becomes really tricky for him to actually get his 0 to deaths. And so I think that's another thing. I think it makes it so that his neutral is very one-dimensional, which, I mean, I think most people know, but most people are like, okay, but if you get the hit, then it doesn't matter. And I guess that's fair. But I think that I think people sometimes ignore this, and then with characters that can abuse that, choose not to. And then finally, let's just go over this. So the problem is that Kazuya's poor ability to land simply reduces how many openings the opponent needs to take the stock. It reduces their openings per kill, which is really important, because when Kazuya only needs 1 hit to kill, and like in most of the time characters only really need most characters need 6 to 7 hits, that's a huge difference. But when you're playing against Kazuya, if you're juggling him properly and you're making it so that like he's getting to like 80% off of openings, which some characters definitely can do. I've seen Fox do it very consistently. Sometimes I've seen Tweak do it to Riddles a few times, and there's always that one Leon Riddle set where Leon was just abusing Kazuya's poor airspeed 24/7. So really, the openings per kill against Kazuya is a lot lower, and I think that means that he actually ends up becoming a little bit more like a glass cannon. And if you're a glass cannon that already kind of struggles in neutral, then you're just becoming a really polarizing character. You either have the tools to just invalidate a character that doesn't have a way to camp you, or doesn't have a way to outspace you. They just have to engage with your moves. Those characters, Kazuya obviously completely destroys. There's no better character at scrapping than Kazuya. So either your character beats Kazuya, or he loses to him. But even with that all said, the counterplay is universal. You know what moves to look out for. You know what his weak points are. Any character can, in theory, set those situations up. And this comes back around to neutral matters. Characters that play neutral well become important again the moment their punish game is well developed. It takes time, but once it is, that character immediately pops back up in the meta, and we start asking like, oh my god, they've completely reinvented this character. A great example of this is Diddy Kong with Tweak. The way that Tweak pushed this character is ridiculous to think about post-pandemic. He ended up creating a punish game that was just absurd. He had so many situations where people were just dying at percents they never would have expected to versus Diddy Kong. And I think that came from his situational awareness also improving, and his awareness of his combo routes. You just get so many instances where he knew exactly what he had to go for, where he knew exactly what kind of DI he had to watch for, and you just get Tweak killing people at absurd percents. And this meant that he was almost inarguably, I think the most consistent top player. He had his like 1 or 2 tournaments, like I know it was not just 1 or 2, but he had his 1 or 2 tournaments where he would lose to Steve and then miss top 8. But without that, you were seeing Tweak in top 8 consistently for the entirety of post-pandemic. You were seeing him in top 4s, finals, he was winning stuff. And I think that just speaks to how these neutral-based characters develop over time to become monsters again, just with new tools, with new punish game. And sure, you're playing less interactions, but goddamn it, those interactions aren't fun to watch. I actually really enjoy watching Tweak's neutral game. It's so interesting how he plays around getting to these crazy openings. And I think that this is just kind of the way the game is going to go, but let's just go over why this is going to be sick. I think that characters in this game do have sauce. I know we've seen some of these combos, like Twitter clips, whatnot, a million times. But when you see it in bracket, it's still pretty cool. It's still really interesting that players are able to execute this, because it's hard. It is hard. And it's good to realize that the way these characters punish people can become a part of their identity. Falco pillars are extremely iconic. They're probably the most iconic part of the character besides maybe lasers. In Melee. And that wasn't something where like, oh, we're building Falco to be cool in this way. That's just what he ended up doing, and it's just sick. And it adds a new element to characters. People are still in the process of discovering all this with their characters, and it looks different for everybody. And on top of this all, as people slowly develop this all and figure out counterplay and all that, I think that neutral will be more fun than ever. I think that the fun of neutral in games like Melee and in games like Third Strike is weighing risk-reward and understanding what can I get away with, what can I afford to get hit by, and what can I not afford to get hit by, and then figuring out how do I play out this neutral in a way that gets me my own big opener to get as much damage as possible. And then we lead into the like unique punch games. And I think this is all a great example of emergent gameplay. Obviously, unintentional playstyles developing as a result of the meta developing. And the perfect example is the Mii Sword Fighter. People thought the Mii Sword Fighter was the most annoying character alive, and people still will, but it's for a completely different reason. This character went from this like weird, awkward zoner with like a weird sword-based game plan with like some weird 50-50 kill confirms into this is a zoner. Oh, but don't let him grab you. But he still has obviously exploitable weaknesses. And it makes the game feel unique. Much like how Samus in Melee is unique from any other iteration of Samus. Samus in Melee is similar in a sense that like Samus becomes a touch of death character from this zoner. They're built around, in the modern day, dealing as much damage as they can off of every opening. And does that mean that Samus is lame in Melee? Does this mean Samus is like super uncool in Melee? Some people might argue it, but I think the character is super sick. I think most people think Samus is sick in Melee. It's cool to see what this character that you don't see often can do to just mess up some Fox players, mess up some fast followers, Marth, etc. And speaking of them, Fox and Falco in Melee were not made to play that way, but they became probably two of the best designed top tiers in fighting game history. And I think that's just an amazing thing. So to wrap it up, where do I think we're headed? I think we're heading into something Melee-esque. I think there's obvious differences. I think that the punish game in Melee is a little bit more fleshed out due to aspects like SDI mattering a lot more against certain characters. I think that Ultimate, however, has, due to the extreme number of characters, I think it has more unique neutral interactions. Melee has a lot more of a common pace and a common rhythm that can occur. Ultimate does not have that. Ultimate has extremely complex neutral. And it's only going to get crazier as people figure out how to avoid the big openers that opponents have with their characters to get their insane damage. And I think with all this said, tier lists will probably become more defined. I think that some characters probably don't have it in them to hit as hard or to play around some of these win cons. I mean, that's unfortunate. They probably will fall down in the tier list, but I think a lot of characters will rise up, and I think a lot of characters will stay pretty much right where they are. I think it's just going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. And I guess to wrap this up, what do I think makes a strong character? I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we don't know yet what makes an amazing character in this game fully, but my opinion is I think somebody who breaks the rules, because in a game where everybody's trying to play a very, like, obviously play to their win cons, play very clearly to their flowchart, which I would say even pre-pandemic was an aspect of the game, I think that being able to break that in some key way is really important. And it means that you yourself are able to find more of the openings that you want, since people just get lost in the sauce. Which is why I play Mega Man, because Mega Man does hit hard enough. Mega Man does have the weird neutral, and Mega Man has like some absurd kill percents that he can work at. So I think that's pretty much all there is to it. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Once again, I just want to say, please check out the Vars video. He makes amazing content, and this is not meant to be a beef or some roast of it. It was just a I found the topic super interesting, and I felt like I wanted to actually put my thoughts on this into words. So I hope you watched all the way through to the end. If you did, feel free to subscribe, feel free to like. If you have questions or just like comments about what you think the meta is shaping up to be like, obviously put them in the comments. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day.